Empty space held more secrets than anyone wanted to admit. Amy Chen had learned this truth during her 3 years aboard the Pathfinder, but she never expected to prove it so dramatically. The neutron star they were orbiting pulsed with radiation that made her instruments scream warnings every few seconds. She ignored them. Engineers learned to ignore a lot of things when curiosity took over. "Got something strange on the scans," Danny Kim called from the pilot seat. His voice carried that edge of excitement that usually meant trouble. "Metal signature, big one. Shouldn't be here." Captain Rebecca Walsh moved closer to his console. Her gray hair was tied back tight, and her face showed the kind of patience that came from 20 years of deep space exploration. "Define big, station-sized. Maybe bigger. It's in a decaying orbit around the star." Amy pushed away from her engineering station and joined them. The holographic display showed a structure that looked ancient. Its surface was dark, pitted with micrometeorite impacts and covered in symbols that predated any human language. "That's old. Really old." "Old means dangerous," Dr. Howard Bell said from his corner. The xenobiologist was always cautious, always worried. "We should report this and move on." Rebecca studied the image for a long moment. "Or we could investigate. That's what we're out here for." 3 hours later, Amy floated through the docking tube that connected Pathfinder to the ancient station. Her suit felt too bulky, too confining. The station's atmosphere was still intact but unbreathable. Nitrogen and carbon dioxide mostly, with traces of gases her suit computer couldn't identify. The gravity was weak, artificial, probably powered by systems that shouldn't still be running after who knew how many centuries. The interior was nothing like human ships. The corridors were wide and tall, built for beings much larger than people. The walls were smooth metal that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Every surface was covered in more of those strange symbols, flowing and organic in their design. "This gives me bad feelings," Howard said through the comm. His voice crackled with static. "Very bad feelings." "Everything gives you bad feelings," Danny replied. "That's why we bring you along. You're like a warning system. A warning system you should listen to." Amy pressed forward, following a pull she couldn't explain. Something in this place called to her. Not literally, not with words, but with a feeling that grew stronger with each step. The corridor opened into a massive chamber. In its center stood a vault made of the same light-absorbing metal. It was sealed with a door covered in warnings. She recognized the universal symbols for danger, death, and forbidden. "Found something," she said. Rebecca and Danny caught up to her. The captain examined the door while Danny scanned it with every instrument they had. "No power signature," Danny said. "It's locked mechanically. Can you open it?" Rebecca asked. Amy studied the mechanism. It was elegant in its simplicity. Ancient engineers knew that complex systems failed. Simple ones lasted forever. Yes, but maybe Howard is right. Maybe we shouldn't. "Since when do you listen to caution?" Danny grinned inside his helmet. "Since I saw all these warning signs." Rebecca made the decision. "Open it." The mechanism took Amy 15 minutes to decode. When the door finally slid open, gas hissed out in a cloud of frozen vapor. Inside the vault, 12 pedestals stood in a circle. On each pedestal rested a weapon. They looked like swords, but the blades were missing. Only the hilts remained, made of crystal that seemed to hold captured starlight inside. A hologram flickered to life above the central pedestal. It showed a being that was definitely not human. Tall, graceful, with 4 arms and eyes that glowed with intelligence. The being spoke in a language that predated human civilization, but somehow the suit translators worked. The voice was female, sad and filled with warning. "These are Starblades, forged from the heart of collapsed stars, meant for those who come after us. But know this, many have tried to wield them. All have failed. The weapons demand perfection of mind and body. They burn those who are unworthy. 47 civilizations have destroyed themselves trying to claim this power. No being can wield a Starblade without the resonance. If you lack it, you will die. Choose wisely." The hologram faded. Silence filled the vault. "Well, that's clear enough," Howard said. "Leave them here. Report this to Earth. Let smarter people make the decision." But Amy was already reaching for one of the hilts. She couldn't help herself. The pull was too strong. Her gloved fingers touched the crystal surface, and the universe exploded into light. The blade ignited. A plasma edge erupted from the hilt. 3 feet of contained starfire that burned white hot. It should have killed her instantly. The heat should have vaporized her hand. Instead, the weapon felt comfortable, natural, like it belonged in her grip. "Amy!" Rebecca shouted. "Drop it." But Amy couldn't drop it. The Starblade had connected to something inside her. She could feel its presence in her mind, ancient and patient. It was alive in a way that machines weren't supposed to be, and it recognized her. More than that, it accepted her. The blade's activation sent out a pulse of energy. Amy felt it wash through the station, through space itself, carrying a message to anyone who knew how to listen. She had just announced humanity's presence to forces that had been watching and waiting for thousands of years. "What did you do?" Howard whispered. Amy looked at the burning blade in her hand. The plasma edge cast dancing shadows on the walls. "I think I just changed everything." Danny grabbed another hilt. "Then let's change it together." "Don't!" Amy warned, but it was too late. The second blade stayed dark. Danny held it, tried to make it work, but nothing happened. He put it back carefully. "Okay, so it's just you." Rebecca made the call. "We take them. All of them. Back to the ship. If Amy can use one, maybe others can too. Maybe this is something humanity needs to understand." They loaded the 12 Starblades into containment cases. Amy's remained active. She couldn't make it turn off. The weapon seemed content to burn forever, feeding on something inside her that she didn't understand. As they returned to Pathfinder, she couldn't shake the feeling that the hologram's warning was about to prove true. 3 days passed. Amy learned to move with the Starblade, learned to make it respond to her thoughts. It could cut through anything. It could deflect energy. It could do things that physics said were impossible. And it never grew tired. On the 4th day, the alarm screamed. "Unknown vessel approaching," Danny called out. "Big one. Really big. Military configuration." The ship that appeared on their screens was massive, bristling with weapons and definitely not human. Its design was aggressive, built for war. A transmission came through in perfect English. "Human vessel Pathfinder. You have violated Galactic Law 742. You possess Starblades. This is punishable by species-wide sanctions. Power down your engines and prepare to be boarded." Rebecca looked at Amy. "This is your discovery. Your call." Amy stared at the Starblade in her hand. The plasma edge burned steady and bright. "Tell them no." "That's going to start a war," Howard said quietly. "Then maybe it's time we introduced ourselves properly." Amy smiled, and it wasn't a gentle expression. After all, they're about to learn something important about humanity. We don't respond well to ultimatums. The alien warship was called the Dominion Fist, and it lived up to its name. Amy watched through the viewport as the massive vessel positioned itself between Pathfinder and open space. Weapons ports glowed with charging energy. This was not going to be a friendly conversation. Commander Ralph appeared on the main screen. He was reptilian, covered in dark green scales that reflected the harsh bridge lighting. His eyes were gold with vertical slits, and they showed no mercy. 3 scars ran down the left side of his face, marks of battles won. His uniform was military formal, decorated with medals that meant nothing to human eyes but clearly meant everything to him. "I am Commander Rolth of the Dominion Coalition," he said. His voice was precise, each word carefully pronounced. "Your species has been monitored since you left your home system. We allowed your exploration. We observed your expansion. But this crosses every line. Starblades are forbidden. This law exists for the safety of all life in the galaxy." Rebecca stood firm. "We found them. We didn't know about any law. Ignorance is not innocence. 47 civilizations have attempted to wield Starblades. 47 civilizations no longer exist. The weapons corrupt. They drive wielders mad with power. They start wars that consume entire systems. We learned this through blood and ash. The law protects everyone, including you." "So you're here to take them," Danny said. "We are here to ensure they never harm another living being. You will surrender all 12 weapons immediately." Amy had been quiet, standing in the corner with her Starblade held loosely at her side. The blade was still active, still burning with that impossible plasma edge. She had tried to deactivate it dozens of times over the past 3 days. It refused. The weapon wanted to stay ready, and she had stopped arguing with it. "And if we refuse?" she asked. Rolth's golden eyes fixed on her. "Then we will take them by force. Your ship will be destroyed. Your crew will die. Your home world will be quarantined and placed under coalition observation for the next 1,000 years. Your species will never leave your star system again. These are not threats. These are facts. This is what happens when species try to claim power they cannot control. You talk about control, Amy said, walking forward until she stood beside Rebecca. But you haven't asked the important question, which is, can I control it? Rolth's expression shifted to something that might have been pity. No being can wield a Starblade. The weapon will turn on you. Perhaps not today. Perhaps not tomorrow. But it will happen. The resonance will fail. The blade will consume you from within. Your atoms will scatter across space as ionized particles. This is not theory. This is documented fact, repeated across 10,000 years of galactic history. Then explain why I'm not dead already. You are lucky. The resonance has not failed yet. But it will. Amy raised the Starblade. The plasma blade hummed with energy. This doesn't feel like luck. This feels like something else. You are a child playing with a star, Rolth said. You do not understand what you hold. So teach me. Teaching implies you can learn. Some lessons are beyond mortal capability. The tension on the bridge grew thick enough to choke on. Howard was sweating despite the cool air. Danny had his hand near the weapons console, ready for orders he hoped wouldn't come. Rebecca calculated odds and found none of them favorable. Pathfinder was a survey ship. It had basic defensive shields and one plasma cannon meant for clearing debris. The Dominion fist could vaporize them without trying. Amy made a decision that surprised everyone, including herself. She walked to the wall where the containment cases held the other 11 Starblades. She opened the nearest case and reached inside. Her fingers closed around a second hilt. Amy, don't! Rebecca shouted. The second blade ignited. Plasma erupted from the crystal hilt, white fire matching the first blade exactly. Amy stood there holding 2 Starblades, one in each hand, both burning with power that should have killed her instantly. The bridge fell silent. On the screen, Rolth stared with an expression humans couldn't read but everyone understood. Shock. Disbelief. Maybe fear. That's impossible, he whispered. Define impossible, Amy said. She crossed the blades in front of her chest. The plasma edges touched, and instead of exploding or canceling out, they synchronized. Energy flowed between them, creating patterns of light that pulsed with rhythm. The Starblades were harmonizing with each other through her. She was the connection, the bridge that let 2 impossible weapons work as one. No being has ever wielded 2 Starblades, Rolth said. His voice had lost its certainty. In all of recorded history, across every species, every attempt to dual wield has resulted in immediate catastrophic failure. The resonance cannot support 2 blades. The bioelectric feedback destroys the nervous system in seconds. You should be dead. You should be scattered atoms. Should be isn't the same as is, Amy replied. Danny grinned despite the danger. I think she just broke his entire worldview. Rolth recovered his composure, but the certainty was gone. This changes nothing. You will surrender the weapons or we will fire. No, Amy said simply. You cannot fight us. Your ship is defenseless. Maybe, but you're curious now. You want to know how I'm doing this. You want to study me, understand me, figure out what makes humans different. And you can't do that if you blow us into particles. Rolth was silent for a long moment. Then he said, You are correct. My orders are to retrieve the Starblades. I have discretion in method. I'm authorizing boarding action. We will take you alive and study how you have achieved this impossibility. Then we will take the weapons. That's still a no. Then you leave me no choice. Rolth made a gesture to someone off-screen, firing warning shot. The Dominion fist's forward cannon released a beam of concentrated energy. It wasn't aimed at Pathfinder, but at the space beside it. The beam was meant to demonstrate power, to show what would come next if Amy continued to refuse. Instinct took over. Amy didn't think. She moved. The Starblades came up in a crossed guard position, and she pushed them forward. Energy erupted from the blades, a wall of plasma that intercepted the warning shot. The collision of forces created a burst of light that overloaded every sensor on both ships. When the light faded, Pathfinder was intact. The warning shot had been completely dispersed, harmlessly, impossibly. Amy stared at her hands. She hadn't known she could do that. The Starblades had guided her, shown her what was possible. They were teaching her, the same way they had taught countless wielders across the ages. Except she wasn't dying. She was learning. Danny, Rebecca said quietly. Get us out of here. Maximum speed now. On it. Pathfinder's engines flared. The little survey ship spun and accelerated, pushing into a jump vector. The Dominion fist moved to intercept, but Rolf hesitated. That moment of uncertainty was enough. Pathfinder vanished into faster-than-light travel, leaving the alien warship behind. In his command chair, Rolf stared at the empty space where the human ship had been. His crew looked to him for orders. He had none. Everything he knew about Starblades had just been proven wrong. Everything the Coalition believed about galactic law had just been challenged by a human who shouldn't exist. "Send a priority message to the Coalition Council," he said finally. "Tell them we have a situation that requires immediate attention. Tell them a human has wielded 2 Starblades simultaneously and survived. Tell them everything we know about human biology and psychology is insufficient." His second officer, a being made of crystalline structures, asked the question everyone was thinking. "What are humans, Commander?" Rolf had no answer. He had studied dozens of species. He understood the biological limitations of organic life. He knew what was possible and what was fantasy, and he had just watched all of that knowledge become meaningless. "I do not know," he admitted, "but I intend to find out, and when I do, the galaxy will need to decide what to do with a species that refuses to accept limits." Somewhere in the darkness of space, Pathfinder raced toward Sanctuary. In the cargo bay, Amy practiced with her Starblades, learning techniques that came from nowhere and everywhere. The weapons whispered to her in feelings and impressions. They showed her forms, guards, strikes, defenses. They were preparing her for something. She didn't know what. But she was starting to understand that picking up those blades had been the beginning of something much larger than herself. The galaxy had rules. Humanity had just announced that those rules needed reconsideration. And Amy Chen, engineer from Mars, had become the messenger no one wanted to hear. The Galactic Coalition Council met in emergency session for the first time in 300 years. Representatives from 200 species gathered in the grand chamber that orbited a black hole, using its gravity to power the station. The architecture was designed to impress and intimidate. It worked. Every species that entered felt small beneath the dome that showed the swirling accretion disk outside. High Chancellor Torin called the session to order. He was ancient even by the standards of long-lived species, and his authority was absolute. His species had evolved in gas giants, massive beings of crystallized thought that needed mechanical bodies to interact with solid matter. His voice resonated through the chamber like distant thunder. "We face a crisis. A new species has claimed Starblades. Not one, but 2. This human has demonstrated abilities that violate every principle we understand about organic limitations. Commander Ralph has provided his report. The evidence is clear. We must act." The chamber erupted in discussion. Some species demanded immediate military action. Others called for study. A few suggested negotiation. Torin let them argue for exactly 5 minutes before calling for silence. The human must be captured or eliminated. The Starblades must be secured. This is not negotiable. We cannot allow another Starblade war. The last one consumed 16 systems and killed trillions. We will not permit history to repeat itself. I am authorizing full Coalition resources for this hunt. Find the human. Bring her to justice. The vote was unanimous. Within hours, every Coalition ship received the alert. Every station posted the bounty. Every species was told to watch for Amy Chen and report her location immediately. Amy knew none of this yet. She was sitting in a maintenance tunnel on Outpost 7, trying to make herself invisible. The decision to split from her crew had been hard but necessary. Together they were too visible. Alone she could disappear into the chaos of frontier space. Outpost 7 was perfect for hiding. It was a mining station built into an asteroid, home to 50,000 beings from 100 different species. Nobody asked questions. Nobody cared about your past. You worked, you paid for your air and food, and you kept your head down. Amy had been here for 2 weeks, doing repair work on ventilation systems and trying to figure out what to do next. The Starblades were hidden in a storage locker she had rented under a false name. She had finally learned how to deactivate them, but it required constant mental effort. The weapons wanted to be ready. They wanted to burn. Keeping them quiet was like holding her breath. Eventually she would have to let go. She needed information. The Coalition wanted her dead, but she didn't understand why. The Starblades were dangerous, sure, but she wasn't hurting anyone. She just wanted to understand what she had found. There had to be someone who could explain what was really going on. That's when she heard about Nira, an old scholar who lived in the lower levels, someone who studied ancient civilizations before the Coalition declared such research illegal. Amy found her in a workshop filled with artifacts and books made from actual paper. Nira was insectoid, her species long and thin with 6 limbs and compound eyes that saw in spectrums humans couldn't imagine. "You are the human," Nira said without looking up from her work. "The one with starblades. You should not be here. Coalition hunters are searching every station in this sector. Then I'll leave soon. But first I need answers. Questions about starblades lead to death. I prefer life." Amy sat down anyway. "The Coalition wants to kill me for touching weapons I found. That doesn't make sense. There's something else going on." Nira finally looked at her. "You are perceptive. Yes, there is always something else. The Coalition fears starblades because of their history. But they also fear what the starblades represent, which is change. The first makers created starblades as tools for those who would come after them. They believed the galaxy would produce species capable of wielding their technology, species with what they called resonance, a perfect harmony of biology and consciousness that allows bonding with first maker tools. Did they say what creates this resonance? Many theories exist, none proven, but I believe it comes from adaptability. Species that evolved in harsh, changing environments develop flexible nervous systems. They can synchronize with technology that more specialized species cannot. Your species evolved on a world of extreme variety. Deserts, ice, oceans, mountains. Your biology learned to adapt to everything. Perhaps that is your resonance." Amy thought about that. Earth had been brutal to early humans. They had survived by being clever, tough, and adaptable. Maybe those same traits let her connect with weapons designed for flexibility. "The Coalition knows this?" she asked. "They suspect. And they fear it. If humans can wield starblades, what else can you wield? What other first-maker technology might you claim? The Coalition maintains power through control of resources and knowledge. Your species threatens that control. So they'll kill me to maintain their power. Not just you. Your entire species is now considered a threat. The bounty on your head is merely the beginning." Amy felt cold despite the warm air. "I didn't ask for this. No one ever does. Destiny is rarely polite." The alarm started then, loud, insistent, the kind that meant security forces were conducting a sweep. Amy jumped to her feet. "They found me." "Of course they did. I reported you the moment you entered." Nira's voice held no apology. "The bounty is substantial. I'm old and poor. I need the credits." Amy ran. She burst from the workshop into the corridor and immediately saw Coalition soldiers at both ends. They were armed with weapons meant to kill, and they moved with professional precision. She had maybe 3 seconds before they opened fire. The storage locker was 2 levels down. She would never reach it in time. The starblades were beyond her reach. She was unarmed, alone, and about to be captured or killed. Then she felt it. A pulse, a call. The starblades reaching out to her across distance. They were not limited by physical space. The resonance connected them, and if she was strong enough, she could bridge that gap. Amy closed her eyes and reached back. She felt the locker, felt the weapons inside, and she pulled, not with her hands, with her mind, with the resonance that made her compatible with technology that predated human civilization. The starblades came. They tore through the storage locker, blasted through 2 levels of metal and composite, and flew to her hands like loyal dogs returning to their master. She caught them and they ignited instantly. Twin plasma blades blazed white-hot in the dim corridor. The soldiers opened fire. Energy bolts filled the space, enough firepower to vaporize a tank. Amy moved without thinking. The starblades guided her into forms she had never practiced but somehow knew. She spun, deflected, redirected. Every bolt that should have killed her instead scattered harmlessly against plasma edges that moved faster than thought. She advanced. Not attacking, not yet. Just moving forward with a confidence she didn't feel but projected anyway. The soldiers backed away. Their training said to press the attack, but their instincts screamed to run. This human was doing things that shouldn't be possible. "Stand down," Amy said. "I don't want to hurt you." They didn't listen. More soldiers arrived, flooding in from side passages. The bounty was too large. The orders too clear. They would overwhelm her through numbers if nothing else. Amy made a decision she would regret later. She crossed the starblades above her head and brought them down in a sweeping arc. Energy exploded outward in a wave, a technique the weapon showed her in the instant she needed it. The blast hit the corridor walls, ceiling, and floor. Metal screamed. Supports buckled. The entire section began to collapse. She ran. Behind her, soldiers scrambled to escape the falling debris. She didn't look back. The industrial sector of Outpost 7 was a maze of corridors, catwalks, and machinery. She knew it better than any coalition soldier. She had spent 2 weeks mapping every passage, every vent, every escape route. That preparation saved her life. 2 hours later, she reached the docking bay where she had hidden a small shuttle. It was barely spaceworthy, held together with welds and prayer, but it would get her away from the station. She launched while security was still trying to coordinate a response. As she cleared the asteroid field, she thought about Nira. The old scholar had betrayed her, but Amy understood why. Survival made people do terrible things. The Coalition would reward Nira well. They would also interrogate her about everything Amy had asked. That meant they would know Amy understood the truth now. They would know she realized this was about more than weapons. It was about fear. Fear of human potential. Fear of change. Fear of losing control. Amy set course for the outer rim. There were places out there where Coalition authority was weak, where she could hide and plan her next move. The Starblades hummed softly in the seat beside her, content now that they were close. She wondered how many other humans could do what she did. How many had the resonance but had never been tested. The galaxy was about to find out. Because Amy Chen was done running. She had tried to avoid conflict, tried to understand peacefully. But if the Coalition wanted war, she would give them something better. She would give them a demonstration of what humanity could achieve when pushed into a corner. She would show them that limits were just suggestions, and humans had never been good at following those. News traveled fast in the criminal underworld. Amy learned that Nira had been arrested 3 days after the Outpost 7 incident. The Coalition claimed the old scholar had aided a terrorist. The charges carried a death sentence. Execution would be public, meant as a warning to anyone else who might help the human with Starblades. Amy watched the announcement from a bar on Haven's Gate, a neutral station that served as a meeting point for smugglers, pirates, and anyone who preferred to operate outside Coalition law. The station existed because every major power found it useful to have a place where illegal business could be conducted without official oversight. It was corrupt, dangerous, and exactly where Amy needed to be. She drained her drink and made a decision. Nira had betrayed her, true, but only because the Coalition had made survival expensive. The real villains were the ones enforcing laws designed to maintain power, not protect people. Besides, leaving Nira to die felt wrong. Humans had a saying about doing the right thing even when it was hard. Amy was about to test how much she believed that. Haven's Gate had an arena. It was technically illegal, but so was everything else on the station. Fighters came from across the galaxy to compete for prize money, glory, or just the chance to hurt someone without consequences. The arena boss was a human named Trent, which made Amy's plan slightly easier. At least she could speak to him without a translator. Trent's office smelled like smoke and old metal. He was a big man, scarred and mean-looking, with cybernetic implants that glowed softly in the dim light. He looked up when Amy entered and immediately recognized her. The bounty had made her famous. "I know you," he said. "You're worth more credits than I'll make in 10 years. Then you know I can fight. I know the Coalition wants you dead. That's different than knowing you can fight." Amy drew one Starblade and ignited it. The plasma blade lit up the room. "I can fight." Trent leaned back in his chair. "What do you want?" "The Coalition is executing a scholar named Nira. I want her released." "Why would I care about some bug scientist?" "You wouldn't, but you care about profit. I'll fight in your arena. 3 matches. I win all 3. You use your contacts to get Nira released and smuggled off Coalition territory. I lose or die, you collect the bounty on my corpse. That's a terrible deal for you." "I know." Trent studied her for a long moment. "You're either very brave or very stupid. Maybe both. Fine, but I pick your opponents. And if you try to escape, I'll turn you in myself." The first match was scheduled for the next evening. Amy spent the time meditating with the Starblades, letting them show her techniques she would need. The weapons were patient teachers, but they also pushed her hard. Every form had to be perfect. Every movement had to flow. There was no room for error in real combat. The arena was a crude circle surrounded by energy barriers that kept fighters in and protected the audience. The crowd was massive, drawn by rumors of the human with Starblades. Most of them wanted to see her die. That was fine. Amy had stopped caring about popularity. Her first opponent was a creature from a high-gravity world. It stood 8 feet tall, covered in armored plates that could stop most weapons. It carried a massive hammer that crackled with electric energy. The thing was built like a tank and moved like one too, slow but unstoppable. The match began with a roar from the crowd. The creature charged, swinging its hammer in an arc that would have pulverized Amy if it connected. She didn't let it connect. Speed was her advantage. She dove under the swing, came up behind, and struck with both starblades. The plasma edges carved through the armor like it was paper. The creature bellowed in pain but didn't fall. Its species was tough. 3 more exchanges followed. Each time Amy used mobility to avoid hits that would kill her. Each time she landed cuts that accumulated damage. The creature was strong but not fast enough. When it finally collapsed, the crowd was silent. They had expected a spectacle. They got an execution. The second match came 2 days later. This time her opponent was an energy manipulator, a being made of living light that could shape plasma into weapons. It was the kind of fighter that gave Starblade wielders trouble, because plasma fought plasma in unpredictable ways. Amy would have to be creative. The fight started with the manipulator throwing bolts of shaped energy. Amy deflected them, but each impact pushed her back. The force was tremendous. She couldn't win by defense alone. She had to attack, but how do you cut something made of light? The answer came from the Starblades themselves. They showed her a technique, something old and dangerous. She could channel their energy not into blades, but into the environment around her. She struck the arena floor with both weapons, and plasma surged outward in a web of burning paths. The energy found the manipulator's connection to the ground and overloaded it. The being of light flickered, destabilized, and collapsed into baseline energy that dissipated harmlessly. The crowd loved it. They cheered, hungry for more violence. Amy felt sick. She was hurting beings for entertainment, even if it was for a good cause. This wasn't what she wanted to be. The third match was different. When Amy entered the arena, she found Commander Rolth waiting for her. He wore no armor, carried only a blade of coalition design, and looked ready to die or triumph. The crowd went wild. This was the matchup they wanted. Coalition versus human, order versus chaos. You volunteered for this? Amy asked. I requested it. You shamed me at our last meeting. You escaped when I should have captured you. My honor demands resolution. I don't want to kill you. Then you will lose. They fought. Rolth was trained, experienced, and skilled in ways Amy had never seen. His blade moved in patterns that seemed to predict her attacks before she made them. He forced her backward, kept her defensive, gave her no opening to counter. His species was faster than humans, stronger, with reflexes that put Earth predators to shame. But Amy had something he didn't. She had 2 Starblades and the ability to use them as one. When Rolth committed to a thrust that should have ended the fight, Amy crossed her blades and caught his sword between them. Plasma met metal and metal lost. His weapon shattered. She could have killed him then. One strike, that's all it would take. The crowd screamed for it. Trent would have preferred it. But Amy lowered her Starblades and stepped back. You fought with honor, she said. I won't kill an unarmed opponent. Rolth stared at her. You spare me. I never wanted to fight you. The coalition made us enemies, but we don't have to stay enemies. Something changed in Rolth's expression. The rigid certainty cracked. You are unlike any being I have encountered. Your species makes no sense. You are weak but strong, violent but merciful, chaotic but honorable. That's humanity. We contain contradictions. Rolth bowed, a gesture of respect in his culture. You have defeated me fairly. I owe you a debt, then help me. Use your influence to get Nira released. Show the coalition that not everyone has to follow their unjust laws. That would end my career. Maybe. Or maybe it would start something better. The arena erupted in confusion when Rolth and Amy left together. Trent kept his word, using his smuggling networks to extract Nira from coalition custody. The old scholar was frightened, confused, but alive. When she saw Amy, she clicked her mandibles in what might have been gratitude or surprise. You came back for me, after I betrayed you. You did what you had to. I understand survival, but now you're going to help me understand the first makers. Really understand them. Because this fight isn't over. It's just beginning. Rolth approached them in the station's docking bay. I have sent my resignation to Coalition Command. I can no longer serve a government that values control over justice. If you will have me, I offer my service to your cause. What cause? The one that starts when beings stop accepting limits they never agreed to. I have watched you fight. You do not battle for conquest or glory. You fight because you refuse to surrender to fear. That is something worth following. Amy looked at the strange group forming around her. A human with impossible weapons, an alien commander who chose honor over duty, a scholar who studied forbidden knowledge. It wasn't an army. It wasn't even a proper crew, but it was a start. Then let's figure out what comes next, she said, because the coalition isn't going to stop hunting me. And I'm tired of running. The galaxy was about to learn that humanity's greatest strength wasn't physical power or advanced technology. It was the stubborn refusal to quit when the universe said no. Amy Chen had picked up 2 Starblades and survived. Now she was going to find out how many other impossible things she could accomplish. Nira's hands trembled as she translated the ancient texts. They were deep in uncharted space, following coordinates the scholar had decoded from fragments of First Maker records. The journey had taken 3 weeks through areas where even pirates feared to travel. Dead zones, people called them. Places where ships vanished and were never found. The temple should be here, Nira said, her compound eyes reflecting the glow of her scanner. On the 4th planet, if my calculations are correct. They'd better be, Ralph muttered. He was piloting their stolen shuttle, a fast ship they had acquired through methods nobody wanted to discuss. His resignation from the coalition had made him a wanted criminal. He seemed content with that. Coalition scouts patrol even this far out. We have limited time. The planet appeared on their screens. It was gray and lifeless, scoured by radiation from a nearby dying star. Nothing should survive there. Nothing should exist there. But as they descended through the thin atmosphere, the temple revealed itself. A structure of impossible geometry, built from materials that predated recorded history, standing alone in a desert of ash. They landed nearby. The environment suits were necessary. Outside air would kill them in minutes. But inside the temple, atmosphere remained intact, breathable, maintained by technology that had run for millennia without failure. The first makers built things to last. The entrance hall was vast. Pillars rose to a ceiling lost in shadows. Every surface was covered in the flowing script that Amy had seen in the weapon vault. But these inscriptions were different. They weren't warnings. They were histories. Stories of the first makers written for those who came after. This is incredible, Nira whispered. Everything the coalition suppressed, everything they said was myth. It's all real. Amy touched one of the pillars. Information flooded into her mind, not as words but as pure understanding. The starblades in her hands resonated with the temple, creating a connection that transcended normal communication. She saw the first makers not as they appeared in holograms, but as they truly were. Explorers, scientists, wanderers who traveled the galaxy searching for meaning. They weren't gods, Amy said. They were like us, curious, restless. They wanted to understand the universe. What happened to them? Ralph asked. They left, went beyond this galaxy to see what else existed. But before they went, they left gifts. Technology for species that would develop the right compatibility. Starblades were just one gift among many. Why blades? Why weapons? Because they knew what was coming. The temple's central chamber held an archive, a massive crystalline structure that contained more information than the entire coalition database. Amy approached it and the starblades pulled her forward. When she touched the crystal, the galaxy exploded in her mind. She saw the first maker's warning. Beyond the edge of known space, something waited. An intelligence vast and hungry, moving between galaxies like humans moved between rooms. It consumed civilizations, harvested stars, turned thriving worlds into lifeless husks. The first makers had fought it once and barely survived. They left their technology behind so the next generations would have a chance. There's something out there, Amy said when she could speak again. Something terrible. It's coming back. When? Nira asked. Soon. The first makers detected it at the galaxy's edge. They calculated it would return in their absence. They hoped we would be ready. The coalition knows. Ralph said quietly. They must know. They have access to First Maker sites. They know, and they're hiding it. The truth hit like a physical blow. The Coalition had discovered the First Maker's warning centuries ago. They had chosen to suppress it rather than prepare for it. Why? Because preparing would require giving other species access to First Maker technology. It would require admitting they didn't have all the answers. It would require sharing power. Better to hide the threat and hope it never came. Better to maintain control than risk chaos. That's why they fear the Starblades, Amy said. Not because they're dangerous, but because they represent what's possible. If beings across the galaxy learned to use First Maker technology, the Coalition would lose their authority. Their entire power structure is based on controlling access to advanced tools. They would let civilizations die to maintain power. Nira sounded horrified. Governments have done worse for less. The archive began to glow brighter. Information was downloading directly into Amy's mind through the Starblades. Combat techniques, strategic formations, ways to coordinate multiple wielders. The First Makers had trained armies to fight the threat. They left their teaching methods encoded in the weapons themselves. Amy saw visions of First Maker warriors wielding not 2 Starblades but 4, 6, even 8. Their biology allowed it. They had been preparing humanity and other species to surpass them, to take the weapons further than their creators had. How many humans do you think can do what you do? Ralph asked. I don't know. Maybe thousands. Maybe millions. The compatibility seems to be related to neural plasticity. Humans evolved that trait naturally. Then your species could field an army of Starblade wielders. If we can get the weapons to them, if we can train them, if the Coalition doesn't kill everyone first. A new alarm started. Not from their ship, but from the temple itself. Proximity warning. The Coalition had found them. Of course they had. They had been monitoring First Maker sites for centuries. The temple's activation would have sent signals across light years. We need to leave, Nira said. Now. But Amy was still connected to the archive. Wait. There's more. Something important. The final piece of information downloaded. A map. Locations of other First Maker weapons caches scattered across the galaxy. Dozens of them. Hundreds of Starblades waiting for wielders. The First Makers had been thorough in their preparations. Got it, Amy said, pulling away from the crystal. Let's go. They ran. Behind them, the temple began to seal itself, protecting its secrets for the next visitors. Outside, their shuttle's sensors showed Coalition ships dropping from orbit. Heavy cruisers, destroyer class. Enough firepower to glass the planet's surface. They're going to destroy the temple, Ralph said as they lifted off. Erase the evidence. Let them try. I have what we need. The Coalition fleet opened fire as soon as they cleared the atmosphere. Energy beams tore through space, each shot capable of vaporizing their shuttle. Ralph pushed the engines beyond safe limits, dodging with skill earned through decades of combat. Amy sat in the weapons chair, Starblades ready but useless against ships. She couldn't deflect orbital cannons. Then she felt them. The other Starblades. Still in the temple. Still active. Still connected to her through the resonance. They were miles away, surrounded by stone and shielding, but distance meant nothing to First Maker technology. She had called the weapons to her before on Outpost 7. She could do it again. Hold us steady, she told Ralph. Just for 10 seconds. We'll die in 5. Trust me. Amy closed her eyes and reached. Not with her hands, but with her mind, with the connection that made her compatible with ancient weapons. She felt the Starblades in the temple respond. They wanted to come. They wanted to fight. She pulled. A dozen Starblades erupted from the planet's surface. They tore through rock and metal, flew through the thin atmosphere, and intercepted the Coalition's weapons fire. Plasma met energy beams, and the beams scattered. The Starblades formed a defensive screen around the shuttle, moving in patterns that seemed choreographed but were actually synchronized through Amy's consciousness. The Coalition fleet ceased fire. Their targeting computers couldn't track the Starblades. Their weapons couldn't penetrate the defensive pattern. Their crews watched in stunned silence as a single human controlled a dozen impossible weapons from inside a tiny shuttle. "What are you?" Rolth whispered. "I'm learning," Amy replied. "The first makers left tools for those who could use them. Turns out humans qualify. They escaped into faster-than-light travel with the Starblades secured in their cargo hold. The Coalition fleet didn't pursue. The fleet commander was too busy sending reports that no one would believe without evidence. A human controlling a dozen Starblades simultaneously through mental commands alone. It was impossible. Everything about Amy Chen was impossible. But impossible was becoming humanity's specialty. Back on the shuttle, Amy studied the map she had downloaded from the archive. Hundreds of weapons caches, enough Starblades to equip thousands of wielders, and somewhere on Earth, among 14 billion humans, there had to be others with the resonance. She just had to find them. "What's our next move?" Nira asked. Amy smiled. It was not a gentle expression. "We're going to build an army. And then we're going to show the Coalition what happens when you try to hide the truth from people who refuse to stay ignorant." The galaxy was about to learn that humanity's most dangerous weapon wasn't technology or tactics. It was the stubborn belief that things could be better, combined with the will to make it happen. The Coalition had tried to control that spirit. They were about to discover why that was a mistake. Amy Chen surrendered at the edge of Coalition space. She broadcast her position on all frequencies and waited for the inevitable response. It came within hours. 20 warships appeared, surrounding her shuttle with enough firepower to destroy a small moon. They were taking no chances this time. "I want to speak to the full Galactic Council," she transmitted. "I have information about the threat at the galaxy's edge. I have proof the Coalition has been hiding the truth. Grant me an audience or I'll broadcast everything I know on public channels." The response took 3 hours. When it came, it was from High Chancellor Torin himself. "You will be transported to the Council Citadel. You will surrender all weapons. You will face judgment for your violations of galactic law." Agreed, but I speak before the full council. 200 species. Public broadcast. No censorship. You are not in a position to make demands. Then destroy me and explain to the galaxy why you refuse to hear my warning about the threat that's coming to kill everyone. Silence. Then, accepted. The Council Citadel was more impressive than Amy expected. It orbited a black hole, using its gravity well to power systems that kept 200 different species alive and comfortable in one station. The architecture was designed to humble visitors. It worked. Amy felt small walking through corridors built for beings 3 times her size. They took her Starblades. She let them. The weapons were quiet now, content to wait. They trusted her judgment. Besides, she had learned something important. The Starblades were never far from her. Distance was an illusion. If she needed them, they would come. The council chamber was circular with representatives arranged in tiers that rose toward the ceiling. Each species had their own section, adapted to their biology. Some breathed methane. Others existed as energy fields. A few were hive minds speaking through mechanical drones. The diversity was stunning. Amy stood at the center alone under lights that made her feel exposed. High Chancellor Torin floated in his mechanical body above all others, a position of authority that everyone understood. His voice resonated through the chamber. "Amy Chen, human, you stand accused of violating Galactic Law 742, possession of Starblades. Do you deny this charge?" "No, I found them. I used them. And I learned why you really forbid them." Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Torin's mechanical form shifted slightly. "Explain." The first makers left warnings. They detected something at the galaxy's edge, an intelligence that consumed civilizations. They fought it once. They left Starblades and other technology so future species could defend themselves. But you found those warnings and hid them. You didn't want anyone else accessing First Maker technology because it would threaten your control. That is a serious accusation. It's the truth. I accessed a First Maker archive. I have the data. I know about the suppressed reports. I know the Coalition has been monitoring the threat for 300 years and telling no one. The chamber erupted in chaos. Representatives demanded explanations. Torin called for order, but his authority was cracking. The carefully maintained structure of power was coming apart. "The human lies," Torin declared. "She seeks to divide us, to weaken Coalition unity. Then prove me wrong. Show the archive data. Share the suppressed reports. Let's see who's lying. Torrin had no response. The silence was damning. That's when Amy's crew arrived. Rebecca, Danny, and Howard, along with 4 other humans Amy had never met. They walked into the chamber carrying cases that contained the remaining Starblades. Security moved to stop them, but Ralph stepped forward. He was still technically coalition military, still had authority despite his resignation. Let them pass. They come under my protection. The cases opened. Each of the 4 new humans took a Starblade, and every single weapon ignited. 4 more wielders, all human, all compatible with technology that 200 species had failed to master. The council stared in shocked silence. Then Danny picked up a blade. It ignited for him too. 5 human wielders. No, 6 because Howard reached for one and it activated in his shaking hands. 7 because Rebecca took one with steady hands that showed no fear. Not just me, Amy said. Humans carry the resonance. Maybe not all of us, but enough. The first makers built these weapons for species with adaptive biology. My species evolved that trait naturally. We can wield what you cannot, and that terrifies you. This proves nothing, Torrin said, but his voice lacked conviction. That's when the alarm started. Not from the Citadel, but from the galaxy itself. Every sensor, every monitoring station, every outpost on the rim sent the same signal. Unknown vessels entering Coalition space. Hundreds of them. Thousands. Ships that matched no known design. Made from materials that shouldn't exist. Moving at speeds that violated physics. The threat had arrived early. The council chamber's displays showed the invasion. Massive ships, each one larger than anything the Coalition had ever built, sweeping through the outer systems. They didn't communicate. They didn't negotiate. They simply consumed. Planets were stripped of resources in hours. Stations vanished in seconds. Defensive fleets were obliterated without slowing the advance. It's here, Amy said quietly. The thing the first makers warned about. The reason they left Starblades. We can either fight together or die separately. The council descended into panic. Representatives shouted over each other. Some demanded immediate evacuation. Others called for surrender. A few advocated for negotiation, though there was no one to negotiate with. Torrin tried to maintain order but failed. His authority meant nothing in the face of extinction. Then the Citadel shook. The invaders had sent a vanguard. 3 ships, small by their standards but still massive, appeared near the station. Energy beams lanced out, striking the Citadel's shields. The barriers held but wouldn't last long. We're going to die here, someone screamed. Amy reached out with her mind. The Starblades answered. They flew from where security had stored them, blasting through walls and doors, returning to her hands with the loyalty of living things. The plasma blades ignited, white fire in the chaos. Or, she said loudly, you could let us fight. The 7 human wielders stood together. Amy gave them quick instructions, techniques downloaded from the First Maker archive. They learned fast. Humans always did when survival was at stake. Together they moved to the Citadel's outer hull, using emergency airlocks to reach the vacuum of space. The invader ships turned their attention to the humans. Energy weapons fired. Beams that could vaporize mountains focused on 7 beings who should have been insignificant. But the Starblades made them more than human. They deflected fire. They created defensive barriers by crossing their blades and channeling plasma in synchronized patterns. They moved between the ships with thruster packs, striking at weapon ports and propulsion systems. Amy led them. She wielded 2 blades in perfect harmony, creating a technique she called Nova Guard, a sphere of plasma that absorbed incoming fire and redirected it at their attackers. The other wielders followed her example, learning by doing, adapting in real time. That was the human advantage. Not raw power, but the ability to learn and change faster than any enemy could predict. The battle lasted 12 minutes. When it ended, the invader ships were destroyed or retreating. The Citadel was damaged but intact, and the council chamber was silent as they watched humans return, Starblades burning in their hands. That's what we can do, Amy said. That's what humans bring to the galaxy. Not conquest, not domination. Just the stubborn refusal to quit when the universe tells us we're beaten. Torrin spoke, and his voice had changed. The arrogance was gone. What do you want? Recognition. Full membership in the Coalition. Access to First Maker sites so we can train more wielders. And an end to the laws that keep species suppressed. The threat is here. We need every advantage we can get. And if the council refuses, then humanity fights alone. We'll defend who we can, save who we're able, and let history judge the rest of you. But I'd rather fight together. The vote was called. 200 species, each with one vote. The chamber filled with light as the results came in. Green for acceptance. Red for rejection. The lights appeared slowly, representatives debating among themselves before committing. Green outnumbered red 3-1. The motion passes, Torin announced. Humanity is granted full coalition membership. The Starblade prohibitions are lifted. All species are invited to attempt resonance trials. And High Chancellor Torin is hereby removed from office for his suppression of critical information. Amy blinked. She hadn't expected that last part. But the council had found their scapegoat. Torin floated away from his position, mechanical body moving slowly. He had ruled for centuries. Now he was nothing. Ralph approached Amy. They will ask you to lead the defense. To command the Starblade Corps, you know that, right? I'm an engineer, not a general. You're a human who can do impossible things. That's what the galaxy needs right now. Amy looked at her Starblades. They hummed softly, content and ready. Then I accept. But on my terms. We explore before we militarize. We learn before we fight. We try. One invader ship fell. Its engines exploded and it drifted into the black hole's gravity well. The second ship retreated, unable to understand what it faced. The third ship increased fire, determined to overwhelm the defenders through sheer volume of attacks. It failed. 7 humans with impossible weapons proved more dangerous than any fleet. The battle lasted 12 minutes. When it ended, the invader ships were destroyed or retreating. The citadel was damaged but intact, and the council chamber was silent as they watched humans return, starblades burning in their hands. That's what we can do, Amy said. That's what humans bring to the galaxy. Not conquest, not domination, just the stubborn refusal to quit when the universe tells us we're beaten. Torin spoke, and his voice had changed. The arrogance was gone. What do you want? Recognition. Full membership in the coalition. Access to First Maker sites so we can train more wielders. And an end to the laws that keep species suppressed. The threat is here. We need every advantage we can get. And if the council refuses, then humanity fights alone. We'll defend who we can, save who we're able, and let history judge the rest of you. But I'd rather fight together. The vote was called. 200 species, each with one vote. The chamber filled with light as the results came in. Green for acceptance. Red for rejection. The lights appeared slowly, representatives debating among themselves before committing. Green outnumbered red 3-1. The motion passes, Torin announced. Humanity is granted full coalition membership. The Starblade prohibitions are lifted. All species are invited to attempt resonance trials. And High Chancellor Torin is hereby removed from office for his suppression of critical information. Amy blinked. She hadn't expected that last part. But the council had found their scapegoat. Torin floated away from his position, mechanical body moving slowly. He had ruled for centuries. Now he was nothing. Ralph approached Amy. They will ask you to lead the defense. To command the Starblade Corps, you know that, right? I'm an engineer, not a general. You're a human who can do impossible things. That's what the galaxy needs right now. Amy looked at her Starblades. They hummed softly, content and ready. Then I accept. But on my terms. We explore before we militarize. We learn before we fight. We try diplomacy before we assume war is inevitable. That's a very human approach. It's the only approach I know. 6 months later, the Starblade Corps had grown to 3,000 members. Not just humans, though humans made up the majority. A few other species had the resonance, mostly those who evolved in harsh, changing environments. They trained together, learned from the First Maker archives together, and prepared for the battles that would come. Amy stood on a training platform watching new recruits' practice forms. Ralph was beside her, now her second in command. Nira was there too, compiling research on First Maker technology for distribution to all coalition species. Rebecca commanded their fleet. Danny trained pilots. Howard studied the invader biology, looking for weaknesses. They said no being could wield one, Amy said quietly. I proved them wrong. Now we're showing them what humanity does with impossible challenges. Which is? Ralph asked. We redefine possible. We take limits and break them. We look at the universe telling us no and we say not good enough. That's what makes us human. That's what makes us dangerous to anyone who relies on keeping others small. At the galaxy's edge, the invader fleet gathered, millions of ships preparing for their harvest. They had consumed hundreds of galaxies over billions of years. They knew no defeat, no setback, no species that could stand against them. They were about to learn about humanity. Because humans had a talent for taking impossible situations and finding solutions that shouldn't work, but did anyway. They picked up weapons no being could wield and made them dance. They faced extinction and chose to fight rather than accept it. They looked at the greatest threat the galaxy had ever known and decided it was just another problem to solve. High above Earth, the Starblade Corps assembled. 3,000 wielders ready to defend their galaxy, ready to prove that limits were just suggestions, boundaries were meant to be crossed, and the word impossible was just a challenge waiting to be answered. Amy Chen, engineer from Mars, holder of 2 Starblades, commander of humanity's first galactic military force, looked at the stars and smiled. The real work was about to begin. But she was ready. Humanity was ready, because when the universe said no being could do something, humans heard a challenge, and accepting challenges was what they did best.